In this section, we will work on the entrance to the house, and on the second sheet of medium weight chipboard cutting guide, we have all of these pieces listed for the entrance. Some are for the entrance itself, some are for a little platform that goes inside to hold a tea light, and then all of this over here is for the roof. We also have a couple pages of templates. The front template for the front is on this page. It's the one we used for with the tower that has the ghosts on it. And then the back is this one, and it's on the same page that we used before for the entrance tower front. So we need those two pages of templates. We also need eventually some decorative paper for our entrance, and then for the roof, a small piece of cardstock, a little 2-inch square of the tracing paper that I've already colored, and the other half of the magnet that we put on the entrance tower. I think that's all we need, so let's get started. Let's start by cutting this opening in our entrance back, and we need to measure in a 1/2 inch on either side vertically. So I'll line this up on my craft mat and measure in a 1/2 inch on this side, and then I'll flip it around and measure in a 1/2 inch from the other side. And then according to our template, it says that this opening is 2 3/8 inches tall. So I'll just turn my piece on its side here and measure down 2 3/8 from the top. And now I've created this kind of rectangular slot opening that we can cut for the entrance back. On the entrance front, please be aware that this template, like the tower, is 75% of its actual size, just because things wouldn't fit otherwise. But we'll just measure down, and we've got our measurements here. So the first thing we need is a center line, and I'll just use my centering ruler to mark a vertical center line in this piece. Once I've marked my center line, I need to measure down 3/8 of an inch from the top, because that is how high we want our circle opening to be. So I'll mark a line 3/8 from the top. And then our circle opening is 1 1/8 inch in diameter, so I'll take my circle template 1 1/8 and get that aligned so that the top of that circle is even with that 3/8 inch line that we just drew. So then I'll make sure I have a fresh craft knife blade in, and I'll be able to easily cut that circle in my entrance front. The last marking and cutting we need to do are on our entrance roof front and back. We just need to mark a center point on each one and then connect that center point to each of the corners. So now I'll just take a minute and do this cutting on all of these pieces of chipboard. Now we're ready to prep some decorative paper, and we are only putting paper on for the entrance part of it, the front and the 2 sides. We'll do the roof in a minute. We don't put any paper on the entrance back, and we'll cut all of these to exactly the same size as our pieces. So I'll go ahead and get those 3 pieces cut. And then for my front, I'll temporarily attach it to the chipboard and cut out that circle. So that's our paper for the front. Now for the roof, first we'll do our triangles, and For one of these triangles, I'm going to use a piece of black cardstock. And on the other triangle, I'm going to use this paper. So I'll temporarily attach both of these, the decorative paper on one and the cardstock on the other one. I'm going to mark which one is which just in case the triangles aren't exactly the same. So temporarily attach and cut out exactly. And then the last thing I want to prep with paper, and we can go ahead and attach this permanently, are the two roof pieces. And make sure these are the pieces that are 1 1/2 by 3, and they should be marked roof. Now I'm going to use this striped paper that was left. It came out of the dormer openings that they were cut 3 inches, and I've got both pieces out here just in case I need it because it's wide enough, but I want to see if I can match the stripes so that when the roof comes together I get a nice matching of my stripes. So I was able to match the stripes and get them both out of one piece of paper. So I'll just put this aside. And so now on all of our decorative paper, we'll go ahead and ink all of the edges, give these that are done a good burnish, and then prep the back side with score tape so it'll be all ready to be installed. So before we put our 4 sides together, I want to take my back and line it up with my front and draw a line on the inside of my front where the bottom of that opening is from the back. And then we'll join all of these 4 together with our joining strips, but we'll still leave it flat. So I'll go ahead and do that. So I've joined my 4 sides together, and now I can put in some ledger strips, and on the bottom we'll go ahead and put them on all 4 pieces, going, leaving them a 1/16 of an inch up from the bottom. And then up here on the top, we'll again put them on our sides, but on the front and back we just need to put 2 little 1/2-inch ones. You can see that here on the back, but also here on the front, because we don't have a full top that comes across. So I'll go ahead and get those installed. So I have all my little ledger strips on the top and bottom here. And then I have 2 more here that are the width of my, a little bit shorter than the width here, about 2.5 inches. I'm going to double these 2 up so that I get a piece that's about, 1/8 of an inch wide. So I'll go ahead and double those up. And then I'm going to install them so they are just up to that line that we drew on the front. And then the last thing that I'm going to do before I make it 3-dimensional is put down some score tape and put my little piece of tracing paper behind the window. So now I've got all those things in, and I can go ahead and take this joining strip and attach it over here. I did hold these ledger strips back so that I could make this final join. Now that we have our entrance 3-dimensional, we can run some glue around those ledger strips and pop in our base. So now I have the base in, and I put a rubber band around it a couple times just to keep it taut. And now I'll put some glue up here on the top, and we have 2 little top pieces that we cut 1/2 inch by 7/8 of an inch, and they'll just pop in on either side here. And I just lightly have a rubber band around this top, not as tight as I have around the bottom. Since we have this gap here, I don't want to pull it out of square. So we'll let that set up. So while the entrance is drying, we can build our little entrance light platform. And here is the base and the two sides. And I'm going to take the sides and run a bead of glue right along that bottom edge. And I'll put this down on my work surface because it's going to attach to the side of this base piece. It does not go on top. And then I'll take the back piece and I'll put the back piece goes on top of the edge of the side piece so that it fits in here. And it'll hang over a 1/16 of an inch to allow for this final piece to come in, which fits right in that side. So we're making kind of a three-sided box. And we'll allow the glue to set up on that little platform box. Once the glue on our entrance has set up, we can cut some finishing strips and go on the 4 vertical edges of the entrance. And once we have our finishing strips on all 4 long edges, we can go ahead and put the decorative paper on. Remember, the decorative paper gets centered left to right. And once we have our decorative paper burnished down, we can use some glossy accents. This is just the smallest of the windows, and I'm putting some little dots all the way around here. And then I'll take my 1 3/8 inch template and center that on the opening, and then I can use that to help me get the window in place here. And once the window's installed, we can take our little platform here, and it should fit inside of this slot, and it'll rest on the back edge, and then it'll rest on those doubled up ledger strips that we put in there. So you can put some glue on the top of both of those places. And the box fits in so that it's open towards the front. And we'll just let that unit and the little box dry for a few minutes. Once the glue has set up on our little light platform, we can go ahead and attach this entrance to the front. And that little box is going to slide right in that hole, and it gets centered left to right here. And you'll want to do this when it's flat on the table so that you make sure it comes all the way to the bottom of your house. Put some good pressure on that and let that dry. So your glue will go up the 2 sides all the way at the top, and then underneath here it doesn't need to go on the platform area at all. Now we can build a little roof that goes on the entrance, and we've got these 2 triangles that we marked. One is for the decorative paper, one is for the cardstock. So when we put this together, make sure that those are facing out so that, so that you can see them on the structure. And we'll build this by, here's our roof base, and we'll just run a bead of glue along one side on the top, and just pick one of your triangles to start with and go ahead and get that right on the edge there. And then once you get one triangle in place, take one of your little roof support pieces and we'll run a bead of glue along that one inside edge of the triangle, and we'll put a little glue down here on the bottom. And this will sit flush along the edge of that ridge line. It won't fit all the way to the top. It doesn't need to. Once you have that piece on, you can take your other triangle. We'll run a bead of glue on the inside of the base along the edge and on the outside of this support piece. So on the inside edge here and on the outside edge there, I'm making sure I can see my words, and I'll put this other triangle in place. And we'll let that set up until there isn't any wet glue around. Once our glue is dry, we can take a finishing strip, and the only place we need to put it is right here on the bottom edge where it says decorative paper. So I'll install a little strip that goes and just cut off the ends of it even with the chipboard. And once we have that finishing strip on there, we can bring in the house and put the magnet on the back here. So we'll start by just putting a scrap piece of chipboard up here where the magnet's located, and then here's my little magnet, which will automatically seek out its partner. Now I have self-adhesive magnets. If yours aren't, make sure you put a drop of glossy accents on there. And then make sure you use the side of your house that says cardstock to put that down, or the side of your roof, and get it centered on the entrance, and then press it down so that that magnet engages and sticks to the back of your tower. Now I'm going to do this in the upright position. I just wanted to show you what we're doing. Now because we only put on one of those entrance roof support sides, you can reach in here to press on that magnet and get it engaged. And once it's engaged, you can pick this up with a whole piece of chipboard there and pull it straight off that way. And your magnet should be in the proper place on the back. So now that we've got our magnet installed, we can go ahead and then put in the other roof support. Just glue it in there and give it a little squeeze. And again, it doesn't matter if it fits exactly in there. Now as you're putting this second support piece in, make sure you're keeping looking at it, making sure it's staying nice and square and perpendicular here, so that you don't have a roof that's kind of slanted. And once that glue is set up, you can take the cardstock piece and put it on the cardstock side. Now remember to run a ring of glue around this magnet for some extra stability there. And then of course the decorative paper goes on this front side. You should see a little reveal of black down here. If you don't, then you can just, and you want to, just trim that off a little bit and re-ink it so that you get a little reveal of black on the bottom. So now we're ready to put on our roof, and I just joined it with a joining strip here on the back. Gave that a good burnish. Now when this goes on, it's going to go flush on the side that the cardstock and the magnet are on. So you probably just put it down on your work table, and that's the best way to make sure it stays flush there with that back. So just go ahead and put some glue on the support pieces here and install that roof. And then to fill in this peak here, I'm just using another one of my little 1/16 inch strips of chipboard. You can use paper, and just like we've had the option with the other roofs. So just put that in there or finish it off how you desire. And then we can put our roof in place. It should fit right underneath the entrance tower and kind of snap in place because of that magnet. And we'll wait to put on the door down here. But the way this works is we can take this roof off, and let me see if I can tilt this so you can see it a little bit better. And then you might have to use some tweezers to grab the tea light to put it in and out. But it sits down inside of that little platform that we made. And you might recall that when we built the tower, we put a little shelf kind of behind in there so that there's no danger of that tea light falling down inside of the entrance tower. And so I don't know if you'll be able to see it in this light, but kind of you can see the flickering there of the tea light lighting up that window.